They told you power corrupts, that true leaders are kind, honest, and fair. But those who say that never held the throne. For over 500 years, one book has survived censorship, exile, and fire. Not because it comforts, but because it reveals. It doesn't preach virtue. It exposes the anatomy of control. It's not a guide for saints. It's a survival manual for those who refuse to kneel. Written not in luxury, but in disgrace. Forged not in theory, but in betrayal, war, and political chaos. This is not a book. It is a weapon. Machiavelli's The Prince isn't about what should be. It's about what is, what works, what wins. And by the end of this video, you won't just know why it was feared. You'll understand why it still seduces kings, CEOs, and anyone who dares to lead. Because the question is no longer whether the prince is dangerous, it's whether you're ready to use it. To understand The Prince, you must first meet the man who wrote it. Niccolò Machiavelli was not born into power. He didn't inherit a throne or command armies from birth. He was a civil servant, a diplomat, a watcher of kings. Born in Florence in 1469, Machiavelli entered a world on fire. Italy was not a unified nation. It was a battlefield. City-states like Florence, Venice, and Milan were locked in endless conflict, while foreign powers, France, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, circled like vultures. Florence itself was a paradox, a cradle of Renaissance art, and a cauldron of political betrayal. And in that chaos, Machiavelli rose, not through charisma or wealth, but through competence. He became Secretary of the Republic of Florence at age 29, tasked with missions few could survive. For over a decade, he negotiated with kings and popes, witnessing not just diplomacy, but the machinery of domination. He sat across from Cesare Borgia, watched Rome burn with ambition, and saw how power truly moves, not with honor, but with leverage. And then, it all collapsed. In 1512, the Medici family, long enemies of the Republic, returned to power. Machiavelli was accused of conspiracy, tortured, exiled, stripped of office, humiliated, abandoned. He retreated to his small farm outside Florence. But humiliation is where clarity begins, and clarity writes history. In a single winter, fueled by desperation and insight, Machiavelli wrote The Prince, not as a rebel's manifesto, but as a gift. He dedicated the book to Lorenzo de' Medici himself, the very man whose regime had crushed him. Why? Because Machiavelli understood something few ever do. When power turns against you, you don't complain. You don't retreat. You offer value, not flattery, not loyalty, but insight so sharp, so dangerous, it becomes irresistible. The Prince was not born in a palace. It was born in exile, written by a man who had lost everything, and that is why it rings true. It isn't about ideals, it's about survival. It's about what you do when you have no allies, no title, and no room for mistakes. Machiavelli wasn't writing for philosophers. He was writing for those trapped in the storm, those who had to lead or be led, dominate or be erased. And what he offered was not comfort, it was clarity. A mirror held up to human nature, unfiltered. He had seen mercy repaid with betrayal. He had seen weakness punished with death. He had seen that the world does not reward the noble. It rewards the effective. And so he wrote, "Better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Fortune favors the bold. A prince must learn to be not good. These were not theories. They were survival codes. Because Machiavelli knew what most refused to admit. Morality is optional. Power is not. Machiavelli believed power was not given, it was seized. But seizing it meant confronting two forces, Virtù and Fortuna. Fortuna is chance, chaos, the flood that drowns the unprepared. It is the economy crashing, a war breaking out, your enemies turning allies overnight. It is the part of life you cannot control. But virtù is your weapon. It's not virtue in the moral sense. It's ability, skill, willpower under pressure, the ability to shape chaos before it swallows you. Machiavelli compared fortune to a wild river. It may destroy cities, but with foresight, you build levees, you dig canals, you redirect the flood. That is virtù. And no one embodied it more than Francesco Sforza. He didn't inherit Milan, he took it. A mercenary captain with no royal blood, Sforza used cunning, alliances, and ruthless efficiency to rise from soldier to duke. He understood the game. Fortune opens the door, but only those with virtù step through and lock it behind them. Today, the principle is unchanged. The entrepreneur who adapts faster than the market. The leader who anticipates crisis and prepares while others sleep. The individual who doesn't just wait for opportunity, but manufactures it. Most people pray for luck. Machiavellian leaders prepare for chaos. They train when others rest. They strike before others see the opening, because in the end, Fortuna is not your enemy. She is your test. She shows up unannounced and asks one question. Did you build the strength to survive me? Every leader faces the same question. Should you be loved or feared? Machiavelli's answer was not poetic. It was surgical. If you cannot be both, it is safer to be feared. Why? Because love is voluntary. It fades. It depends on the mood of the people, their comfort, their shifting emotions. Fear, on the other hand, is stable. It creates boundaries. It makes betrayal expensive. It commands caution, even when admiration dies. But this isn't about terror. Machiavelli warned, never become hated. Hatred is volatile. It births rebellion, fuels vengeance, and invites your fall. The goal is not cruelty, it's control. To inspire fear without resentment. To be respected, not reviled. History gives us a masterclass. Vlad III of Wallachia, known as Dracula, ruled with brutal fear. But it wasn't just violence. It was targeted, theatrical, strategic. His enemies feared crossing him. His people, though silent, obeyed. Order held, not from love, but from consequence. In modern terms, it's not about instilling terror in your team. It's about being unshakable, enforcing standards, letting people know failure has a cost, disloyalty has a price. Because love inspires comfort, fear inspires discipline, and discipline protects power. The trick? Apply it early. Apply it cleanly. Never let cruelty linger. Make the message clear. I will not be crossed. A leader who depends on affection will one day be devoured by disappointment. But a leader who masters fear, without sliding into hatred, builds a legacy. Power is not about truth. It's about what people believe is true. Machiavelli understood this centuries before social media, before PR firms, before spin doctors. In The Prince, he wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." This is the real battlefield, not the streets, but perception. Your image is your armor. Your myth is your fortress. A prince does not need to be merciful, loyal, or just. He only needs to appear so, because people don't follow reality. They follow symbols. They follow masks that promise security, greatness, or certainty. Consider Pope Alexander VI, a man Machiavelli admired for one reason. He lied with elegance. He swore oaths he never intended to keep, but always looked holy doing it. His image bought him time, power, allies. In our world, leaders stage photo ops, CEOs preach values they quietly break, influencers sell lifestyles they don't live. But it works, because optics beat facts. You don't need to be good. You need to be convincing. That's the art. project control while navigating crisis, display virtue while maneuvering ruthlessly behind the curtain. Machiavelli's genius was not cynicism, it was realism. He saw that humans are visual creatures. They trust what they see, even if it's a performance. And if you refuse to play the role, someone else will. And they'll rule the story you left empty. Because in the war for influence, the mask often matters more than the man. Machiavelli didn't glorify violence. He warned against weak cruelty, the kind that drags on, breeds resentment, and invites revenge. His advice? If you must act harshly, do it fast, do it once, and then restore order. Injuries must be inflicted all at once, he wrote, so that their taste being less, it offends less. It's not savagery. It's strategy. Take Cesare Borgia, not for his charm, but for his precision. He appointed a brutal governor to tame a rebellious province. When that governor became hated, Borgia staged his execution, public, clean. He eliminated the fear and claimed the credit for peace. That's not cruelty, that's control. In modern terms, a CEO knows layoffs are necessary. Weak leaders drag it out over months, bleeding morale. Strategic leaders cut once, clearly, then rebuild. Swift pain, followed by healing. The same applies to discipline. A manager who tolerates chaos loses respect. One who corrects early, firmly, and explains why, restores order, and earns loyalty. Cruelty, when used well, is not about causing harm. It's about preventing greater harm by taking the weight of one sharp decision. But here's the key. You must stop after the strike. No endless punishment. No lingering fear. Act. Then shift into stability. Because cruelty is like fire. Use it to forge strength, not to burn the whole house. Machiavelli's version of mercy wasn't softness. It was clarity. One strong blow, then calm. Because when leaders hesitate, they prolong suffering. But when they act with precision, they build empires on order, not ashes. No ruler reigns alone. Even the most powerful need counsel. But Machiavelli made one thing clear. Choose your advisors, or they will choose your fate. He warned of two dangers. Flatterers who tell you what you want to hear, and advisors who slowly become the ruler behind the throne. The solution? A prince must always be the master of his own judgment. Listen, but never surrender decision-making. Allow honesty, but never permit disloyalty. Machiavelli advised keeping a small, carefully selected circle. Not those who agree with everything, but those whose loyalty is to the mission, not to their ego. Look at Emperor Augustus. His advisor, Agrippa, was brilliant and silent in public. He empowered the throne without trying to sit on it. Now contrast that with weak leaders who surround themselves with echoes, boards filled with yes-men, executives afraid to speak truth, leaders who mistake comfort for clarity. They rot from the inside out. In modern leadership, the principle is identical. Don't confuse charisma with competence. Don't hire friends, hire minds. And when someone whispers only flattery, ask yourself, are they helping me rule or helping themselves? Powerful leaders build filters. They invite truth in, but keep control tight. They reward feedback, but never allow indecision to spread. Because when everyone has your ear, no one has your respect. Machiavelli didn't oppose advice. He just knew what most don't. A ruler who loses judgment, loses the throne. Everything we've discussed so far, Virtù, Fortuna, fear, illusion, control. It's not just theory, it's the foundation for something far greater, presence. Because power isn't just about making decisions, it's about becoming impossible to ignore. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince for politicians. He wrote it for those who wanted to become forces of nature. People who don't just survive history, they bend it. And here lies the final transformation. You are no longer just managing chaos. You are commanding perception. You are not reacting to fortune. You are creating momentum so powerful that others orbit around you. This is how the myth is born, not from noise, but from inevitability. It starts with silence, with discipline, with cold decisions no one sees until their consequences become undeniable. Then comes the presence, not arrogance, but weight. The room shifts when you enter. People watch what you do, even when you say nothing. That is the result of strategy, reputation, and control, applied over time without compromise. Modern myths follow the same blueprint. Leaders who rose from nothing built iron reputations and made themselves indispensable, not by being the loudest, but by being the most deliberate. You must stop chasing attention and start commanding gravity. Each move you make, each word you speak, must carry the echo of intention. No wasted energy, no accidental actions. Because people don't follow strength, they follow certainty. They trust those who look like they've already won. This is the true meaning of power, not control over others, but control over self, not domination, but direction. You become the axis around which the game turns. And once you reach that level, something strange happens. Enemies multiply, but they hesitate. Allies appear, but only after you've proven you don't need them. The myth forms not when you speak, but when others speak about you. You become a reference, a symbol, a storm in human form. Machiavelli understood that kind of legacy, not carved in marble, but burned into memory. So ask yourself, are you leading, or are you still waiting to be chosen? Because legends are not crowned. They are forged, in exile, in fire, and in silence. By now you've seen it. Machiavelli didn't ask for your admiration. He asked for your clarity. He didn't promise justice. He promised survival. He didn't offer comfort. He offered control. Because leadership, in his eyes, was not a reward. It was a battlefield. One where hesitation invites betrayal. Where morality is a luxury and power is a necessity. The prince still endures not because it flatters us, but because it strips us bare. It reveals what lies beneath every title, every campaign, every promise. The will to dominate or be dominated. It forces us to answer questions most are afraid to ask. Would you rather be loved or feared? Would you rather appear good or be effective? Would you break your oath if it meant saving your empire? Would you silence the crowd to preserve your command? These are not hypothetical. They are tests, and every day you pass or fail them in silence. In your work, in your relationships, in the mirror. Most people spend their lives waiting for approval, for luck, for the world to recognize them. But the prince was never written for them. It was written for those who are ready to lead without permission. Those who are tired of being outmaneuvered by weaker men with stronger resolve. Those who are willing to do what others won't, so they can build what others can't. If that's you, this is just the beginning, because power is a language. And Machiavelli only wrote the first chapter. There are more thinkers, more strategies, more forbidden truths buried under centuries of fear and censorship. This channel exists to bring them to light. So if this video opened your eyes, don't stop here. Join us, because the throne doesn't go to the righteous, it goes to the prepared. And now that you've read The Prince, the only question left is, what will you do with it?